My brother and I were a perfect pair. We grew up together, so we had similar personalities. We always stuck up for each other and consoled each other when times got rough. We were a happy little family. Me, my brother, and my parents lived in an urban city area in New York. We never got to see each other before 8 p.m. because my brother and I both went to school, and we both had chores and homework. We never really hung out unless it was night out. We didn't get to see our parents either, as they both worked the same job and shift, which started at 6 p.m., so we pretty much said goodbye when they said hello. Because of this, me and my brother were able to go outside late at night, without permission obviously. But we would go to the top of our apartment building and drink Coke and enjoy the view. I soon noticed though that his demeanor had begun to change. He became less outgoing and didn't enjoy our nightly visits to the roof anymore. He'd pretty much stay in his room all night. Soon, his grades began to slip and his room became a mess. He worried less and less about hygiene. Within a month, he became a pale, emaciated figure. I would always ask him what was wrong, and he would just get defensive. It wasn't long until he completely shut himself off from us. I would still check on him constantly though. This got me nowhere. He would just answer with a simple, "Fine," and send me on my way. After 2 months, whatever was getting to him finally took over. He killed himself in his bedroom. He didn't go to school. My mom was wondering why. Went to check on him. There she found him hanging. He hung himself from the ceiling fan. My dad left my mom shortly after. After that, it seemed like the depression passed on to me. Though mourning his death, I was never pushed to the brink of suicide. That was until I started seeing him. Not like a happy reuniting with him. He told me that he was happy where he was and that he wanted me to be with him. I told him I wouldn't know how, even though the answer was obviously clear. I hoped he wasn't thinking what I thought he was. He handed me a noose and said, "Use this." I threw the noose and yelled, "No!" He acted like he had been struck by a baseball bat. He left, leaving me in peace for a day. After that, he continued to show up, telling me to just do it, to pull the trigger, to be with him. After 3 months, I just snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I tied a noose to my ceiling fan. I put it around my neck, standing on a chair. I didn't even kick the chair. It just slid to the other side of the room. That's when I had my "oh shit" moment. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to be like my brother. I got more desperate the more I choked. In a split second, my body hit the ground with the fan light broke over my head. In my concussed daze, my brother kneeled down and yelled, "You can't do anything right!" I fell into sweet oblivion. When I woke, I was at the hospital. My mother had walked in and found me laying there. She got me a therapist, which for the most part healed me. After that, my mom constantly hugged me and asked why I would leave her alone. I haven't seen my brother since, but the memories have failed to fade, and every day I worry that I might walk into my bedroom and see him again. The noise sounded hollow. It had a strange echo to it. As I brought my feet to the edge of the curb, I realized it was the weeping of a small child who sounded more like Jeffrey with each second that passed. But that was ridiculous. My boy had been gone a long time. Cars zoomed by, their horns honking and engines rumbling, but I heard his sobbing underneath them all, coming from somewhere in the middle of the street. I waited until the way was clear and walked out. The crying grew louder, and I thought I could make out words. "Close, closer, Daddy," his trembling, childish voice said. "Hello?" I answered, my feet moving forward. "You have to help me," he said. His voice seemed to be coming from the drainage gate. How did he get down there, I thought. It was an idiotic question. The real one should have been, how can a dead boy speak? I could almost peer down through the metal slits of the grate when a horn blasted its piercing cry through the street. I jumped out of the way of a speeding blue van that zoomed by on my left side while a second horn sounded, forcing me to sidestep out of the path of a taxi. My eyes shot up to the green traffic light above my head as shouting resounded from crowds on the sidewalk. I instantly became aware of the danger of my situation and quickly ran out of the street safely. "I'm going to get help, Jeffrey," I shouted to him from the sidewalk, unthinkingly. Of course, there was no response. During the next red light, I walked out to the grate again and looked down inside. There was no one there, only a few rain-soaked leaves and fast food wrappers. I called down through the metal bars and began to cry. I cried like I hadn't cried since I found my boy floating upside down in the bathtub almost 6 years ago, and I didn't stop until the light above my head turned green. I was out with some friends nearly a week later when I heard Jeffrey sobbing just as I had before, even through the noise of the bar we stopped in. Bill was laughing at some joke, and I raised my hand above my head and shouted, "Quiet! Do any of you hear that?" The entire table went silent. I faintly heard the whispered words, "Come here, Daddy." They resounded like a gong inside my head, making my palms sweat and my heart beat hard in my chest through the strange mixture of terror and longing. "Head, shoulders, knees, and toes," Jeffrey sung hauntingly. He had learned the words in preschool only a week before his death, and had been obsessed with the song, singing it almost constantly to my wife's and mine annoyance. She was long gone by now, unable to handle her husband on top of the crushing grief. "I don't hear anything, Greg," Jacob said as their laughter rang out louder than before. "Looks like you've had a little too much." "Looks like it," I mumbled. I felt like I was going to puke, so I stumbled from the table and walked out the door, hearing nothing but the happy song of my deceased child. There was no denying it now. I was losing my mind. The pub led out to an alley, and I threw my hands up against my ears and slid down the damp concrete wall in an attempt to drown out my Jeffrey's voice. The notes of the song mingled with a disgusting gargling sound, as if he was drowning. I screamed, but it didn't seem to make a noise. Then there was silence. The sounds of the city slowly came back to me and filled me with comfort. I looked down and watched my once heaving chest slowly quiet itself as my gasps subsided and my breathing returned to normal. It was then that I heard the slight metallic ringing noise that seemed to come from the other end of the alley. My nerves returned, and I listened. There were only the sounds of cars splashing through puddles, and the crowds going about their Friday night businesses until the quiet tingling metallic notes resounded again. I was barely aware of my motions as my feet moved forward along the alley, my hand sliding along the brick wall to my right and steadying me. The alley opened up to a wide avenue, and I recognized it as the same street where I had first heard Jeffrey nearly a week ago. It was late, and a few cars were on it now. Steam rose slowly from the asphalt, a remnant of the last summer thunderstorms. The ringing sound cut through the humid air, coming from the drainage grate in the middle of the road. "Come closer, please, Daddy," Jeffrey sobbed from somewhere beneath. "You're not real," I muttered, but my feet went on, splashing into the puddle as I stepped off the curb and onto the damp street. "Please, hurry," he whimpered. I was almost on top of the grate now, and I could see a pale form flittering beneath the iron bars. The sight stopped me in my tracks and filled me with inexpressible fear. "You're wrong," my voice rang out uncontrollably, trembling. "Help me! Help me!" Jeffrey's shrill voice emanated from the abhorrent thing. Brightness shone all around me, accompanied by the sound of a car horn. I felt an enormous force crash against my side. My body was hurled through the air and collided against a lamp pole. My clothes were soaking wet, growing wetter by the second. Before it went dark, I heard an inhuman shrieking that was somehow indistinguishable from the laughter of a little child, the laughter of my Jeffrey. The noise instantly overpowered my senses and hurried the blackness along. Hey guys, it's Listen to Me Speak. I just want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more stories.